What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we've talked quite a bit about Joy-Con drift with the Nintendo Switch and the Joy-Con controllers, but Microsoft's actually been dealing with their own situation around Xbox drift and a class action lawsuit that's been updated pretty recently, even showing what the issue is inside of the joystick and adding some fairly expensive controllers to the situation. Also, we have to go over Sony and their own battle with the PlayStation 5 and a counterfeiter who was attempting to trademark PS5 and take it away from Sony. Oh, and I get to remind you today about Crucible, just to let you know that Amazon is giving up on it. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're brand new here, hit that red subscribe button down below. And we're gonna start today with Ghost of Tsushima, a game that I had a blast playing this year, and I'm looking forward to that multiplayer mode that's launching this week. That'll be on Friday the 16th. But there's been a lot of questions about, will this game work on the PlayStation 5? On Friday, Sony answered that. We talked in depth about what they posted for the PlayStation 5 backwards compatibility on the second channel, Spawnwave Plus. But one thing that came out after that video was that Ghost of Tsushima will have support for up to 60 frames per second on the PlayStation 5. Resolution, we're not 100% sure on. We'll see what Digital Foundry says about that. Load times apparently will be even faster. Load times are already insanely fast on Ghost of Tsushima. Like after you initially load into the world, when you do have to reload a checkpoint after maybe dying in the game, it's very, very quick, shockingly fast at times. So really cool to hear that those will improve even more so, but having that 60 frames per second mode in a big open world game like that looks great is gonna be really, really cool to see in motion, and it'll be just in time for that multiplayer that's going to go live less than a month before the PlayStation 5 releases. So that'll be a good one to take over and play on launch day. And if you missed out on it, you might as well pick it up if it goes on sale leading up to the PS5 launch, because that game, when you put it on the PS5, will look really, really good, even compared to some PS5 games probably over the next year. Also, we had talked before about The Medium, that is from Bloober Team, and they make The Observer, Layers of Fear, and they had shown this off where it was like this dual reality kind of like horror style game. It's very weird looking. The idea of switching between two different realities could have some really cool gameplay elements with puzzles and all of this, but we now know when it is coming out. It's coming out December 10th, so yeah, a month after the Xbox Series X and S release, because keep in mind, this will be a console exclusive on the Xbox. It will also be on PC, so I'm not as into all of the different horror games, but this one kind of looks like it has that direction to kind of challenge your mind as well with the dual reality stuff, maybe even do some weird tricks to you, and like Layers of Fear did some stuff like that. So I am at least interested to see this, and this is a game that they said wasn't possible on last generation systems, specifically because of that dual reality thing that they're working in. So that's one I will be checking out on the Series X just to see how it all works out and how good the game is. But December 10th, about a month after the Xbox launches. And for anyone looking for Bravely Default 2 information, because we're kind of getting down to the end of the year and we thought it was going to come out this year, it's looking less and less likely for that to happen. We've had a demo, there was a lot of feedback given for that, but they did post up online this right here that says information on Bravely Default 2 will be released soon, so please check it out. And we can see an illustration there, very, very cool. But I do think Bravely Default 2 is going to come out next year. I'm starting to think this could be maybe a February or a March release. We're running out of time. They would announce it and it would be out in like a month. If anything, I thought they could try to work it into the first week of December. Best case scenario would be like midway through November, but again, it would come out in a month then. So they'd announce it and it'd come out in a month. I think what they'll do here is that they will talk about all of the adjustments and improvements that they made from the feedback that was given for the demo, because it seems like, based on talks online, there were a lot of things that people weren't too happy with and some things people really, really liked. So based on what we've seen with Octopath Traveler as an example from Square, I'd like to think that they took that feedback constructively and improved the game, and they want to tell us about that and then hit us with a release date. Probably, I'm going to say, in February. And guys, some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this odd situation with Sony and a person in India who is working to trademark and claim the PlayStation 5. It's a very odd thing to see, but this was spotted by people on Reddit, and you can see they made this post here, and it says PS5 trademark debacle in India. Apparently the guy who filed for the PS5 trademark before Sony is the same guy who owns trademark for, let's say, Cuckoos, A counterfeit PS4 controller seller, they had their controllers listed on Amazon for quite some time, but got pulled today. And I feel like I've seen that word come up a few times before on Amazon, the Cuckoos brand there with the wireless controllers. And you can see, I mean, they look just like the PS4 controllers. However, people who have ordered these, and obviously the reviews are not good, say they're basically cheap knockoff PlayStation 4 controllers, and those exist for all different systems, like the Switch. We talked about Switch Pro knockoff controllers here, knockoff Joy-Con controllers that are getting very, very close, but some of those Pro controllers are insanely close. But PS4 controllers, no stranger to that situation. It's just strange now because they are fighting for this trademark. At least they were for a bit there before Sony just came in and just slapped them down, it seems, for the PlayStation 5 trademark so that I guess they could do their own counterfeit version of either PlayStation 5 DualSense controllers, which I can't imagine that would be good at all, or the system itself. Now it goes on a bit further where this person filed an opposition to Sony's PlayStation 5 trademark. This was spotted by a commenter in that Reddit thread. You can see they say, he has filed a counter opposition to Sony's PS5 trademark, stating Sony is not the original owner of the product and is harming his goodwill in India. This happened on September 16th, so this is going to drag on for long in court. And you can see right here under number 10 in that filing that the applicant is not the original and bona fide proprietor user of the mark. The trademark was initially used and adopted by the opponent in October 2019, openly, honestly, and continuously, and no injury will be caused to applicant as the, okay, this is obviously ridiculous, but they seem to want to push further in court over this. I don't really know how you could make a case if you're just someone who's like, yeah, that PlayStation 5 trademark is mine. I made it. It's not Sony's. Like, that, they don't have PS5 stuff. What are you talking about? I don't know how that works. And it seems that all of their stuff was pulled down from Amazon, so Sony just wasn't having it. It seems like, all right, well, we'll just go ahead and start claiming and filing copyrights and all of this on these different things that you're doing, which are clearly counterfeit versions of our stuff, our controllers. And Sony shouldn't have any issue at all winning this in court because they do own the PlayStation 5 trademark. It's very strange with this situation out there around counterfeit versions of systems and controllers, because usually you feel like they wouldn't push this far. I'm not really sure what the plan was here when you go to court pushing for something like this. It's like telling Nintendo that you own the copyright and the trademark to Nintendo, even though they're called Nintendo. It's okay, sure. Well, it's probably not going to work out, and things should be rolling along after what's probably going to be a much longer than necessary court battle between Sony and a counterfeiter in India. Next up, let's talk about the Xbox controller in their own situation around controller drift, of course, where the joystick will basically move in a direction on its own. So if your character's sitting there, all of a sudden your character might start just running left. And that would be something with controller drift. It's detecting movements that are not there because there's some sort of malfunction inside of that joystick. We've seen it with the Switch, of course, with the Joy-Con. That's been a whole situation there. But Microsoft has been dealing with their own. In fact, the class action lawsuit was updated and amended on October 2nd, and they even included this image here, which allegedly shows why it's having issue with kind of this lubricant that's causing some flaking and disruption where it senses the movement of that joystick. And to go a little further than that, they've added the Xbox Elite Series 1 and 2 controllers to the list of peripherals that it alleges are experiencing drifting issues. Remember, the Series 2 controllers went on sale last year, and the original Xbox Elite controller has been on sale for years now, and this would be an issue because, of course, those controllers are like $180. You feel like you might do something a little different with the joysticks in there, but considering they use more, I guess you say premium materials, even the cap on top of the joystick is like an aluminum, or it's not just all plastic. It seems that they put quite a bit of money into the building materials for it, but not the actual structure of the controller. Believe it or not, I've seen a lot of people have issues with their Xbox Elite controllers, which is always really weird to me because they're so expensive, and we always have that kind of in our minds, right? Like, oh, this thing's really expensive. It has to be higher quality. That's not always the case because the Xbox Elite controller does still use a very similar motherboard, joysticks, and this just kind of proves it. That would be really frustrating, though, to buy that. Now, it's hard to say what's really going to happen with this class action lawsuit because they are saying that Microsoft has knowingly put these controllers out with these malfunctions in the joystick. That's the same thing against Nintendo, and we've seen what Nintendo's strategy is. Don't admit anything and let the court system kind of work it out. And that's most likely what Microsoft's going to continue with here. But now that they have seemingly full pictures of the issue and they're adding very expensive controllers to the case, it's really not helping Microsoft right now. But this is something that's been ongoing for a while, and I don't really know when it's going to clear up. I talked about the Joy-Con class action lawsuit probably not figuring itself out until like we're into the Switch 2's life. It's probably going to be halfway through like the Series X's life. But what if those same joysticks are being used in the next Xbox controller? What if those are added to this case? It's something to keep an eye on there, especially if you do get a new controller and it has drift. It'll start to make you think about that. Next up, let's talk about Amazon and Crucible, which was like their PvP action shooter, hero shooter style game. It kind of showed up and then it was like, it fizzled out very, very quickly. That was the game where I believe that they had it leave like a closed alpha, and then it went back into closed alpha so they could work things out, and it turns out just not enough people cared for them to keep going with it. And Amazon is working on a few other things, which I believe they have like this big MMO they're currently working on, and they decided Crucible is probably just not it. We took a shot and we're gonna move on from there. But they did release a blog post, and in there they said this: "We very much appreciate the way that our fans have rallied around our efforts, and we've loved seeing your responses to the changes we've made over the last few months, but ultimately we didn't see a healthy, sustainable future ahead for Crucible." Now, according to The Verge, going a little further than that with the closed beta, you'll still be able to play the game in some form for a short while, and the developers will be hosting a final playtest and community celebration in the next few weeks. And according to them, once that's done, matchmaking will be disabled, but you'll be able to play custom games until 3 p.m. Eastern on November 9th. If you had any purchases there, apparently they will be doing full refunds for anyone who was playing Crucible. And yes, if you're a Crucible fan, if you're one of the 10, it is a shame to see this. But I mean, realistically, Crucible just was always struggling. I remember when it first was shown, people were like, I don't know about this. And then when people got to play test it, it didn't go over well online, and then they kind of had their alpha, and that didn't go over. It never clicked, it seemed. So they did their best with it, but it looks like they'll be taking the developers from there and moving them on to their other projects. They have like an MMO called like the New World or so. We'll see how that goes. But these service-based games need monthly active users, and I have a strong feeling they did not have many at all for Crucible because of how poorly it was received, and then it shifting back and forth being open alpha, closed alpha. It was all over the place. But there we have it. Crucible, unfortunately, won't make it to the end of this year, like I said, for any of the 10 to 20 people who are still playing it. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about that court battle right now. A lot of lawsuits, by the way, today, between Epic Games and Apple. Remember what happened? All of a sudden, Epic said, hey, we don't feel like paying Apple's 30% for being on their iOS store with Fortnite. We're just gonna introduce our own payment processor, not tell them. And then Apple kicked Fortnite off of the iPhone. And that was a big deal, right? Well, after that, Epic filed a whole lawsuit. Microsoft seemed to back them up. And you know what? Microsoft might be regretting that a little bit right now, because it seems that at this time, with this ruling that is under, I guess, deliberation right now, it seems that this could affect Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft, because, as has been pointed out by the judge, they all run something similar. This was according to Judge Rogers on Friday, saying, indeed, Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft all operate similar walled gardens or closed platform models as Apple, whereby the hardware, operating system, digital marketplace, and IAPs are all exclusive to the platform owner. Epic Games avers that the iOS platform is unique from other gaming devices. Specifically, Epic Games argues that gaming consoles and computers require electrical outlets and separate screens, and thus lack capacity for mobile play, which demands portable, battery-operated, cellular connected devices with built-in screens. Yet, Epic Games repeatedly ignored discussion of gaming laptops, tablets, and the Nintendo Switch, all of which can be played in a mobile fashion. These devices could have significant overlap with the iOS platform in terms of the ultimate consumer. Again, however, at this stage, the record does not contain sufficient information to determine whether such other devices are economic substitutes or are merely complementary to the iOS devices. A final decision should be better informed regarding the impact of the walled garden model, given the potential for significant and serious ramifications for Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft and their video game platforms. Let me ask you this. If the judge rules that Epic is correct, and that Apple cannot stop them from using their own payment processor and avoiding that 30% that seems to be used by basically everyone, right? I mean, Steam, right? Valve uses it. We just talked about Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, and apparently it's okay to do that. What's stopping any other company, that'd be Bethesda, Activision, right? Any of them from doing that same thing on the Microsoft Store, on the PlayStation Store, and on the eShop? Like, that is the biggest thing here about this. And that's why people all of a sudden are like, oh, maybe Epic should not win this case, because that means there would be no reason to make a PlayStation, to make an Xbox, or to make a Switch, really, because they don't sell these pieces of hardware to make a bunch of money on the hardware. They sell the hardware to grow an install base so that they can then sell software to you and get cuts from third parties or indie games. And if they don't make them money, then there's no point in doing that. They would all just go third party, like Nintendo would just go third party and just make software if there was no walled garden there for them to take 30% cut off of other pieces of software on their system. So now this case has become massive, because if this goes through, it sets a precedent. All of a sudden, you can see lawsuits popping up everywhere, and they would just point to this case. So that's why it seems to be such a big deal now. And we'll keep an eye on what happens here. But now people are hoping that Epic Games doesn't get one over on Apple, because it could have massive ripple effects all over the gaming industry. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day. As you can see here, this is from Matt saying, the GameStop Microsoft partnership makes me think disc to digital trade-in program is back in the conversation. This is a good point, because of course we had that Xbox One S all digital, the SAD console. And the idea there was you would go to a Microsoft store, you would have your physical media, your physical Xbox One games, you would hand them to the person at the register, and they would then kick back a digital code, transforming that game essentially into a digital version of it for your SAD console. So let's say GameStop and Microsoft, of course, have this new computer system set up. You take your game to GameStop, they transfer it into a digital version of it, and then they get to keep that game and sell it, and then they can make money on that. That is a great point, and it is something that is very possible, because if Microsoft is setting up this whole computer system, maybe GameStop has more access to do stuff like that, and they can work more alongside Microsoft. There's a lot of things that could happen from this. We're just not 100% sure how far they will go with it, but that is a great point there. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, whether it's the walled garden approach that very well could be kind of shattered there if Epic Games is ruled in favor of over Apple with this whole situation. Let me know what you think about that, because then all of a sudden there could be a problem with Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft and their own walled gardens with their consoles. What do you think about Sony having to fight against a person counterfeiting PlayStation accessories for the PS5 trademark? And then Microsoft and their own Xbox drift situation with the Xbox controllers that are like $180. Crazy stuff there. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.